Welcome to CCA and the role of the CCA review team, an introduction to becoming a CCA reviewer. The goals for this session are for you to become familiar with the CCA accreditation process, understand your role as a CCA reviewer, and prepare the ground for the in-person reviewer training. In this section, we'll give you a brief overview of CCA, its history, and the CCA accreditation program. CCA came out of a unique partnership for accreditation. Responding to a growing interest in a Canadian accreditation program tailored to community-based health and social services, 5 associations came together to form CCA. Together, they combine over 100 years of accreditation experience. These 5 combined and revised their accreditation programs, creating a new third-party organization, the CCA. We piloted the program through 2012, revised the program based on our learnings, and then fully launched in French and English in 2013. CCA accredits the organization as a whole, using a tailored, modular set of organizational and program and service standards that were developed with input from each of the sectors. The process includes organizational self-assessment and planning ahead of time using a web-based tool, organizational documentation presented ahead of time, CCA surveys of an organization's staff, board, community partners, and other stakeholders, a site visit that involves interviews, observations, file reviews, and other activities, and a preliminary report stage that gives the organization an opportunity to provide additional evidence before the accreditation decision is made. CCA reviewers are volunteers, staff, and board members involved with organizations that participate in CCA, making it a real peer review process. Our reviewers come from a mix of community-based sectors. An organization is accredited for 4 years. Organizations say participating in accreditation enhances their culture of learning, quality improvement, and accountability, supports learning about leading practices, strengthens their systems and processes in order to improve organizational effectiveness, motivates board and staff to work towards common goals, demonstrates to the community, to people served, and funders the organization's commitment to ongoing quality improvement, risk management, and accountability. And ultimately, it provides third-party recognition for achievements of their organization. Organizations tell us they value the fact that CCA is a truly bilingual Canadian program. It's geared to community-based service providers. It's a great one-stop for multi-service organizations, and that CCA's standards support excellence in service provision. In this section, we give you an overview of the CCA framework, how our requirements are organized. Organizations accredited through CCA are asked to meet a common set of organizational standards which cover governance, management, leadership, and an organization's core functions, as well as standards in the program and sector-specific areas that are most relevant to them. There are currently program modules in the sectors you see on the screen. Standards are grouped into logical, thematic categories called components. Each module has a certain number of components. Each standard is a broad or high-level aspirational statement, like a desired state, followed by a series of indicators by which the achievement of that standard will be addressed. There are 2 types of standards, mandatory standards and leading practice standards. Mandatory standards are those that address legislated requirements, significant safety or risk issues, or crucial elements of good practice. Leading practice standards promote quality improvement and really push excellence. To be accredited, an organization must meet all of the mandatory standards and a certain number of leading practice standards. Each indicator is linked to 1 or more sources of evidence. These sources of evidence include things that happen before the site visit and during the site visit. Let's look at an example of a mandatory standard. This one in the CCA Organizational Standards module, part of the governance component. Take a moment to read the standard and its indicators. You'll notice that there are some things that are very typical of a mandatory standard. First of all, it addresses a significant issue of risk or legislated requirement. It's quite black and white. Either you got it or you don't. In a mandatory standard, you must meet all the indicators. And mandatory standards usually, but not always, are associated to documents as evidence for their indicators. Let's look at an example of a leading practice standard. Take a moment to read this one, which is in the service description component in the Family Counseling module. As we said before, leading practice standards push quality and excellence. You don't have to meet all the indicators in order to achieve a leading practice standard. An assessment usually will rely on things other than documents. In this case, interviews. Note that the first indicator is marked required. In some leading practice standards, 1 or 2 indicators are noted as required, indicating that these particular indicators must be among the indicators that are met under that standard in order for it to be achieved. Now let's look at the roles and responsibilities of a CCA reviewer. CCA reviewers are staff, board, and volunteers involved with organizations that participate in CCA. Each review team is made up of individuals from a mix of sectors. Each team has a team leader and 1 or more reviewers. The CCA office provides support in the form of a designated CCA accreditation manager to each review and some administrative coordination and support. As a reviewer, you're an active participant in the work of the review team throughout the process. You assess pre-site evidence, making decisions on your own and as part of a team. You lead interviews and other site visit activities. And you participate in lots of debriefing and decision-making throughout. One of the most important things you bring to your work as a CCA reviewer is your own experience and knowledge from your work or your volunteer work in your own sector. This ensures our teams are really well-grounded in the realities of organizations being reviewed. We don't expect you to be an expert in everything. We want you to have a curiosity and a willingness to learn. And of course, we rely on you for your insights and observations for the ongoing improvement of the CCA program. These are some of the essential skills and qualities we look for in a CCA reviewer. An understanding of governance and community-based program delivery practices, good communication skills, great interviewing skills, a familiarity and ease with using the internet and computers. This is important because CCA accreditation is built around a web tool. We look for an ability to analyze and synthesize information, good judgment and decision-making capacity, teamwork skills, great time management and flexibility, and of course, integrity and trust. Now let's look at the CCA accreditation process in a little more detail. This is the timeline of a review from your perspective as a reviewer. The planning stage starts about 6 months before the organization's site visit, when we recruit you onto a team. We do a conflict of interest check with you and with the organization. Once conflict of interest clears, we authorize you to book your travel and give you the go-ahead. About 2 months before the site visit is when your work really begins in earnest. Your team will have met and divvied up the work, and you'll begin assessing some of the indicators using the web tool. By 2 weeks before the site visit, you'll be done your individual decision-making and be getting together as a team to make team consensus decisions on all the indicators you can and to finalize and prepare the site visit. By the end of the site visit, you can see your level of involvement tapering off. Last team decisions are made, and the team leader submits a preliminary report to the CCA Accreditation Manager. The CCA Accreditation Manager takes over from there, finalizing the preliminary report, which is sent to the organization 2 weeks after the site visit. When you become a reviewer, you commit to participating in some training. You also commit to giving your time, so reviewers aren't remunerated, though we do cover your travel and your accommodations. Before the site visit, we estimate you'll spend about 15 to 20 hours reading and assessing pre-site evidence and making decisions on your own in the web tool. This represents the bulk of the work effort. Site visits range between 2 and 5 days. You're an active participant in all parts of the review. You're documenting in the web tool and participating in site visit activities. Remember, there's no time for anything else. You're often debriefing in the evenings. After the site visit, the team leader does have a role in preparing the preliminary report. You'll work in the GoCCA web tool throughout your review. GoCCA is simply the password-protected area of the CCA website. The web tool is a one-stop hub for all your reviews. You can access resources in the Reviewer's Corner, and you use the web tool to assess indicators and make notes. As a reviewer, you're required to have a portable computer that can connect to the internet. Expect to see organizations' documents in either Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF. For anything else, you'll be provided with a hyperlink to a website. You also need your username and password issued to you by CCA. Before the site visit, you work in the web tool to assess the indicators you've been assigned. These are indicators that are dependent on documents, narratives, and surveys. You'll read and call up evidence that's linked to each indicator, and make a decision of met, unmet, or don't know, and make notes on your assessment and any questions so you remember later. Then, as a team, as the site visit approaches, you come to consensus on team decisions and you strategize for the site visit. The team leader has some additional things to do before the site visit. The team leader will help orient review team members that are newer, initiate web conference or telephone meetings with the team, and contact the organization to plan the detailed site visit schedule. Members of the review team will make their own travel and hotel arrangements with CCA's travel agency. The team leader is responsible for making sure that happens. The team leader also ensures the organization has made on-site arrangements for the site visit activities, for food, for the rooms, and for access to a printer. The team leader is responsible for making sure the team gets to a team decision and for entering and maintaining those decisions in the web tool as the review progresses. The team continues to use the GoCCA web tool throughout the review. The tool keeps track of all your notes and cumulative assessments. You'll debrief and use the tool to focus on what you still need to know. The team leader updates one team decision per indicator. You'll use reports to shape your interviews, create observation checklists, and so forth. While the site visit schedule will look different for different organizations, the types of activities and requirements are the same. The team is oriented to the organization, will conduct a number of mostly group interviews, including with the board or governing body, with groups of staff, including a staff cross-section interview, interviews with program-specific staff, with managers, and with the chief executive. The team will observe the facilities and sometimes programs in action, review some files and documents on site and trace processes as they occur, and finally tie off the site visit with a verbal wrap-up presenting an overview of the preliminary results. Team members will work together and individually throughout and debrief and make decisions as they go. Let's look at an example. This is the site visit of a medium to large community health center. It's a multi-service agency that serves a very diverse community over 2 sites. The CCA modules that applied were the CCA Organizational Standards module and the Community-Based Primary Healthcare Standards module. The review occurred over 4 days and had 3 reviewers on the team. This site visit happened over 4 days, starting in the afternoon of the first day with an orientation and ending in the morning of the 4th day with the verbal wrap-up. The team spent time at 2 locations, spending day 3 at the organization's second site. A number of interviews occurred, including with the governing body towards the start, with a cross-section of staff, with some small groups of staff, including primary care and direct service staff, and with a manager's group and the chief executive towards the end of day 3. In a community-based primary healthcare review, there's no file review, but there is the tracing of a process called the client journey. It involves tracing the journey of 3 clients through service by interviewing a client, looking at the client's file, and interviewing providers. You can see spots for the client journey carved out throughout each of the days of the review. Some of the activities would have involved the whole team, but most would have involved 1 or 2 reviewers working in parallel. The team would have built in lots of debriefing time, including over lunch, between the various activities, and in the evening. The verbal wrap-up would have given the organization a heads-up of what was coming in the preliminary report. After the site visit, the team leader completes the preliminary report and sends a draft to the accreditation manager, and the accreditation manager takes it forward. The organization receives its preliminary report 2 weeks after the site visit ends. If there are any outstanding requirements, the organization has 6 weeks to submit additional evidence. The organization's response is reviewed by the manager, and the manager makes a recommendation on accreditation to CCA's board. There are 3 possible outcomes: full accreditation, non-accreditation, or conditional accreditation. In the case of conditional accreditation, an organization could be granted up to 6 months additional time to satisfy any outstanding requirements. This concludes our look at CCA's framework, the role of reviewers, and the CCA accreditation process. We look forward to having you at reviewer training. If you have any questions, contact CCA. Thank you.